Dole ñefe. Gumo leen yàlla waay.
Legend in the making. Never thought about how long the dream would take when your confidence is breaking and you're fighting not to give in to temptation. Champion no be easy. Even a silver spoon needs food to feed a fool full of privilege. Money no be talent, talent be divine heritage. That's your leverage. Hustle every day where you know they see top. Bank alert still no drop.
I'm the brother, yes. Salute to my niggas in the Ghana son.
You are listening to In the Mix, and this silky voice is your host, Mariah, or as my father likes to call me, Brobs. The In the Mix podcast is the poddy dedicated to celebrating and demystifying the vibrant African sound. That's Afrobeats, Amapiano, and all the many, many eclectic vibes in between. I've been avoiding this topic a little bit because I'm just sort of annoyed by it, but I thought this was necessary to what I've said my goal is for this podcast. If you're online at all, if you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, Instagram, if you're watching YouTube videos, if you're interested in Afrobeats artists at all, if you're African, you've probably seen there's all this talk about the end of Afrobeats. Afrobeats artists rejecting the term Afrobeats or the genre Afrobeats and trying to seem different from what everybody else is doing. A lot of artists are coming out to say they're not, they don't do Afrobeats, or, Afrobeats is not the only thing that they do, or Afrobeats is this and this and that and that. Wizkid has made comments that he doesn't make Afro anything. Fireboy commented on an Amazon Music podcast episode with Bloody Civilian and SARS that he doesn't make Afrobeats. Contextually, what he said made sense, but people are taking these comments and sort of are not understanding why people or artists seem to be rejecting Afrobeats. So I want to talk a little bit about why. Why is this the case? On online, people are getting angry. They're like, why are we, rejecting something that should be ours? Why are artists not claiming happily the sound that has propelled them to this global superstardom? And I have some thoughts that I want to share. The sort of, I guess you can call it disorganization that seems to be coming from the Afrobeats camp is something that I almost knew from very young would happen one day as the genre became more popular, because of the way the word came about. It was really sort of just a simple catch-all for the things that we were doing and the sounds we were making in West Africa. Sorry, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different intricacies of different sounds coming from the different countries. The francophone countries have their own sound, and Ghana has its very particular sound, and Nigeria has Fuji and Afrobeats, but then there's also alternative music, and then there's also all these smaller genres, and all these sounds over time, over several decades, came together to make what we have come to understand as Afrobeats. So let me give a quick 101 of why we started using the term Afrobeats. Everyone should know the story about Fela. Obviously, Fela was making Afrobeat, no S. I'll spare you the details. Basically, we later came to borrow the term, added an S to it to sort of signify that this was a combination of things. It was multiple things. It was a plurality of things. And so it was never really meant to be one particular thing. And so I'm not as upset as I would say as people online anyway seem to be with artists like Wizkid and Fireboy and Burna Boy seemingly rejecting Afrobeats because of the way it started. It just was never meant to be this. However, that being said, we are already here. It's already happened. The term, we can't take it back. this is not the time for us to sort of try to make our own lanes and try to push what we should have been pushing from the beginning are the different genre names. So again, things like Azonto, Asaka, Fuji. If we even go to South African house, which has so many different subgenres like Kwaito, Kom, Amapiano, and then not to even talk about what's going on in the French part. There's again 50 plus countries all producing so many different sounds, all influencing each other, related cultures, all blended together, cross border. And then also just to even think about the fact that Africans, if you really think about it in terms of everything, we simply do not categorize anything that we do in the same way that the Western world does. And so when it comes to genres and music, I think we have the same issue. We just don't look at it the same way that the Western world might look at it. So in a couple past episodes, I've tried to tackle this a little bit, sort of touching on it slightly. We've interviewed a couple of great people from different parts of the music industry, the African music and entertainment industry. And I've been asking questions to sort of allude to the topic. The very first episode with Big Homie Flea, shout out to Flea, we love Flea over here. He had, the most direct and optimistic outlook on where he thought Afrobeats was going. He didn't think that there was any way that we could lose the sound or that it could be diluted or that it could sort of be taken away from us. And I agreed with him to an extent. I appreciated that perspective, especially because I think I'm just more pessimistic about the way things are going. And as time has gone on and I've continued to think about it, I am leaning more towards his side of things. Let's start with a little bit of that history. Afrobeats 101. So the plural term Afrobeats has been credited to, the first time it was used has been credited to British Ghanaian DJ and producer DJ Abrantier. Shout out to DJ Abrantier. He's a legend in the game. This, you can find more information about this history of the term and where we and how we got here on, there's a Teen Vogue article titled A Brief History of Afrobeats, and they credit DJ Abrantier. But he has come out to say that he didn't come up with the term himself, that he was making mixes, he was working with artists from the continent, and those individuals are using the term Afrobeats to sort of describe the catch-all term that describe the music that they were making. It's a nice, clean, simple word, Afrobeats. It's easy to grab onto. It sort of can be easily aligned to the continent. Whereas I feel like if you think about the names for other genres, Kom, Kwaito, Azonto, Asokpo, Asaka, Fuji, it might be a little hard for that to be, and speaking from like a PR, if you're branding it, it may be a little bit harder to brand a word like Asokpo. It's a little harder to pronounce. Things like that, basically. So it started as a catch-all, just like a summarizing term. And that's where the problem was, because all these artists that were in this mix working with DJ Abrantier, they were not all making Afrobeats. Some of them were making Azonto, some of them were doing hip-hop, some of them were doing pop, some of them were doing Fuji, some of them were doing, yes, something that we would understand as Afrobeats now. Some of them were doing more R&B, some of them were doing dancehall. For example, Ghana has a huge dancehall culture. We love reggae and dancehall. And there are musicians that come out of that. But now all those different elements are being put under the umbrella term Afrobeats, just because there's a certain drum rhythm in it and there's a certain Africanness to it. And so this is where I would say that I'm on the side of artists that have come out to say that they don't do Afrobeats, just because if you feel it can feel constraining, it can feel confining. You may not, as an artist, if you care about your art and if you care about how you present yourself, you may not necessarily feel like Afrobeats describes what it is that you do. And so as an artist, you would want to sort of own that narrative and be considered the artist that you want to be. Afrobeats the the word Afrobeats is simply too generic. That all being said, we are already here. We can't take back the years of building what it is that we have now. And so I think it's unfortunate that people like Wizkid again, Burna Boy, Fireboy, and some other artists are trying to sort of emphasize that they don't just make Afrobeats, or they don't make Afrobeats at all. They make Afrofusion. And Afrofusion in particular really grinds my gears because Afrobeats is a fusion of African sounds. And it feels like a lazy attempt at distancing oneself from what they feel like is an oversaturated genre. Again, I agree. It is, if you're coming from Africa, you don't want to just because you're African, you're an Afrobeats artist or you're an Amapiano artist and nothing else. Especially because, as these artists are coming to the West, they're trying to get recognition, they're trying to get onto the charts, they're trying to win awards. If you feel like you're not making an Afrobeats album, but you're put in the same category as other Afrobeats artists, it feels limiting. It feels like you're not going to get recognized for the talents that you have and the range that you have. So it's a completely understandable feeling. But again, we are already here. There is no point in, I think, trying to erase something that is already established. I really love Rema's comments around this. He's sort of been the most true to the fact that, like, look, at the end of the day, we're all going to meet at these Afrobeats Awards. We're all going to end up in the same charts. We're all going to end up in the same field. And it's not an escapable thing that you can do. You can't talk your way out of that. And so let's respect the history that has brought us here, and let's respect the sounds that we're making and represent ourselves to the best of our ability and stick to what it is, Afrobeats. This problem, not really a problem, but I guess you can call it a problem. This problem really isn't just an African thing. If you've listened to Cowboy Carter, even Beyonce is talking about the restriction of putting yourself in one genre. Tyler, the Creator, has made so many comments over the years about how even when he was making pop albums, they would still put him in the rap category. Genres, as a general concept, are restricting, are limiting. And for Africans now coming to the table, finally getting that recognition that they need, the pay that they need, the respect they need for the creativity, I will understandably feel like I'm being restricted here. I'm finally being recognized, but not in the way that I want to be. I think there's other ways. There's other ways to reclaim ourselves. Rejecting Afrobeats or trying to claim that you make pop and R&B and rap is all well and good, but you're not going to be put in the rap category. Unfortunately, unless I really hope that there is a time that we are recognized in that way. But as Asaka artists are at this present moment not going to be put in the Grammy rap album category. They're going to be put in, best international act, best Afrobeats act, etc., so on and so forth. We're already here. It's up and stuck, and there are disadvantages to it. But like Big Homie Flea said, it is here to stay. It is important that we embrace it and we take hold of it. If we take hold of it, we take pride in it, then we can control our narrative. Rema, I would say, for example, he makes a lot of different genres. He does trap sometimes, he's rapping sometimes, he's doing pop sometimes. But he's perfectly fine with taking the Afrobeats label. Arya Starr is out here doing all sorts of features all over the world. She's in Brazil, she's in Europe, she's in India, she's all over the place. Again, wearing the Afrobeats tag. King Promise, touring all over Asia, selling out all over Asia, wearing the Afrobeats tag, even though, again, I would say maybe he's more of a high life artist, hip life artist. We can't run away from where we are today. So what do we do? How do we make sure that at the very least, we're still owning this genre? Because the more that we reject it, the more that we try and distance ourselves from it, just for the sake of getting appropriately recognized or correctly recognized, the more it's going to be overtaken. See, I just saw a K-pop video. I don't even know who the artists are, but it was supposed to be an Afrobeats piano type sounding song, and this is how the rug will be pulled from under us if we continue to not hold on to it proudly and say that African artists are making Afrobeats, yes, but we're also making rap, we're also making pop, we're also making R&B, we're also making amapiano, also making house, we're also making kwaito, we're also making kom, we're also making fuji, we're also making rumba, we're also making sukus, we're also making palm wine music. We're making a lot. Be proud of that. Be proud of, yes, Afrobeats and that's how we should approach, I think, the discourse and how we label our music. Afrobeats and we can't let nitpicking get in the way of claiming who we are and being proud of that and representing it wherever we go. I think that's one thing that Tyla, for example, is doing fantastically. She's repping South Africa hard. People are thinking of her as a pop girly, which and her marketing has been fantastic. I think that's something that needs to be studied because despite that difference and in where she's coming from and her sound being, very amapiano house sounding, people think of her as a pop girly. There are also, multiple factors to that. It's also, the way she looks and the way she dances. All of that can be easily translated, especially to an American audience. So that has also helped her. But she is wearing SA with pride. She is wearing South Africa on her chest, making sure that that's always at the center of her sound and of who she is. And, she's sticking to the accent. She's not slanging. She's not trying to sound different. She's not trying to represent something else. And I think that's what every artist needs to be doing. Be proud of where you're from. Bella Schmurda has a great interview with the 90s Baby podcast where he's talking about it. And he's like, we just have to be proud of where we come from and represent it. I think it's a beautiful interview. That's something you guys should go listen to. And then additionally, I think it's important for music listeners, the fans, and then African artists themselves to support and respect the various award shows that come out of the continent. There's the AMAs, African Music Awards, um, Ghana Music Awards, so many other different awards that I'm not even aware of. And honestly, I should be. We should all try to support those better because at least in those particular awards, we can encourage them to be more specific about how they represent us. So if it's Fuji music, we should have a category for Fuji music. We should have a category for alter music. We should have a category for hip life, high life, etc., so on and so forth. And we should be able to trust our own institutions to represent us well. And if we represent ourselves well back home, then it will translate globally. Of course, there's so many factors to that. Like, let's not even think about our government and the politics about how all these things sort of come to pass and the lack of infrastructure to really build charts and have great award shows. But we need to press on regardless. We need to press on regardless of the lack of infrastructure. I think it's the same way that each individual person has to push themselves to grow. Even when you feel like, you're struggling, you don't have enough money to do something, you find ways around it. You keep pressing on. If you're trying to be a creative, for example, you don't have the right camera equipment, you don't have the right mic equipment. You record on your phone. You start with what you have and then you press on. And I think that's something as a continent on every level, economically, politically, musically, we need to just sort of accept that fine, at the moment, we don't have the best of stuff. But if we don't try to grow it, if we don't support it, if we don't put efforts into it, it's never going to come. The growth and the improvement is never going to come. And so what I think all these artists need to do is follow in Rema and Tyler's footsteps. And I want to say that I want to shout out to my Ghanaian people. I think my Ghanaian artists are representing ourselves well. We're really we're showing love to who we are, and we're staying true to who we are, and we're speaking our languages and all that. And of course, there are many other people doing that in many other countries. And so I think the biggest names like Burna Boy, Wizkid also need to represent Afrobeats and be proud of that because that's the only way that we will grow. That being all said, again, the women are doing fantastically. Thames, Arya Star, Tyler, Amare, representing where they're from proudly, and also still being unique and not like allowing anyone to constrict them, and also not trying to, and not even claiming that they're being restricted. They're just pressing on, pressing forward, doing it for the love of the fans, for the love of creativity, for the love of music. So that's really my Afrobeats 101. We can't let it slip from our fingers. And it will slip from our fingers if we continue to try and circumvent sort of the difficulties that come with claiming a genre. Again, it's happening everywhere. With hip hop, with pop, people everywhere feel constrained by things like race, where they come from, their economic status, their class status, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, if whatever it is that puts you on the pedestal, make it work for you. And that would be my thoughts on the whole I don't make Afrobeats sort of claim that some artists are making.
Dee leen ñëfe doo leen ñëfe gëmoo leen yàlla waay.
Champion.
Okay, so now I want to talk about what am I listening to in terms of African music, obviously, African content, where you can go and hear some good sounds. Kofi O Kofi by the legend Kofi Kanata. It's his debut album, but he's been in the game for a minute now. Really enjoying that album. You know, Fancy Four, like representing, that's Ghana for you. I would recommend that for everybody. Shakes Poppy, obviously Shady Poppy is ruling the soundscape right now. The album is, if you're like me, you love that stream music, Shally Poppy is for you. I fucking love everything that Shally Poppy does. Shakes Poppy, I think, is a great project. Quick plug to some of my peoples. If you're looking for a podcast, you're in your mid-20s, you're looking for a podcast that sort of talks about growth and the uncomfortability with that. And to be honest, I've kind of talked about that a little bit in this episode, but in regards to music. My good friend Amaka Nitu has a podcast out, Gentle Chaos. Please check that out. If you're looking for a good sound mix, something to play, put on at a party, you don't want to DJ, you don't want to have to be on the aux all the time, you just want to put on a mix. Peace and Quiet, PNQ on Instagram. Shout out to my DJ, JJ. Great SoundCloud mixes. Go check them out. And then in terms, again, of podcasts you can listen to, again, about African music, what African creators are doing, Stay by Plan, particularly season 4, episode 6. I thought that was a great episode because they talked to Frank Has a Plan, who's a Nigerian music blogger, executive, A&R, I suppose. And it's interesting to sort of see his insights into the Nigerian music industry, specifically the Nigerian music industry, which again I think it's important for all of us to represent where we come from. So I think he speaks greatly for the Nigerian industry. We need more people to talk about the Ghanaian industry. We need more people to talk about the Togolese industry, what's happening in Senegal, what's happening in North Africa, what's happening in East Africa. So that we can, again, continue to represent ourselves well within the continent, from the continent, and be proud of that. So I think that State by Plan, season 4, episode 6 episode is pretty good. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been Mariah. I'd love to hear all your thoughts about this. I know I'm coming in a little late again because I was avoiding it because the whole topic was sort of annoying me. But follow us on Twitter to chat with us about all your music thoughts, any music recommendations that you think people should hear or that you think I should listen to and review. I think I'm going to do reviews at some point. Follow us on TikTok for the fun on and off mic moments. Follow us on Instagram for all our updates when our episodes are coming out. New things to expect. New parties where you can go hear music, good African music. And that is everywhere at In The Mix Poddy. I've been Mariah. God bless.
I'm the brother, yes. Do it for my niggas in the Ghana, son. Haters gonna be running when the bar come. Hustle for the cash, where I'm coming from. Champion with the whole number, talk too much.
Nigga know the hoe, but I make 2 horse. Make I hit lights best, make I chop jack doors. You can get it for the low, I can never take a loss. I'm the nigga with the sauce, nigga yams raw dog.
And if I did with your ex, but I'm making no vex. Latex, I'ma pull up in a minute, no stress.
Big Benz, I'ma pull up and I hit it, no flex. All 10s, I'ma get it with the commas, cause I'm blessed.
We be blessed.